Welcome back to 16 Weeks of SATs with myself, Andrew, and this week we are going to be looking at pronouns and possessive pronouns as well. So a relatively straightforward, again, SATs strand that we're going to be looking at. Previous few weeks we've looked at verbs, nouns, adjectives, modal verbs and conjunctions, and now we're going to be looking at those pesky pronouns to a certain extent. And the best thing about pronouns is they're really straightforward. Again, there's only so many of them. And again, they're relatively easy to spot. And in this video, we're going to look at straightforward pronouns and some SATs examples, and we're going to look at possessive pronouns. And all we're thinking about when it comes to pronouns are words that replace nouns. So in a sentence, instead of maybe the word Mark being used and being repeated, Mark was walking down the street, Mark kicked a ball, it would be Mark was walking down the street and he kicked the ball. So he would be the pronoun. And again, in the word pronoun, we can see noun, which is a big clue that pronouns are just replacing nouns. Very straightforward. And then when it comes to possessive, when we hear the word possessive, we should think possession, ownership. So again, those are words like instead of saying Mark's ball, it might have been their ball or his ball, okay? Showing the possession in the relationship from Mark or the person to the ball. So again, very straightforward, but let's take a look at some SATs examples and we'll talk through why pronouns are pronouns and why possessive pronouns show possession. Let's take a look at them. So let's take a little bit of a look at pronouns and some of the definitions just to begin with. So we've got pronouns here, and again, very straightforward. A pronoun, and again, the nice little thing to see here is noun. Okay, so if we're not sure, we're thinking about nouns, and pronouns replace them. So again, it takes the place of a noun. Very simple. And if we take a look over here, pronouns are words like I and you, he, she, it, we, they, it. And then we've got a whole litter of them down here as well. Okay, so words that are replacing the names of people and potentially other objects in sentences. So again, if we were thinking about Paul walked along the street, it might be he walked along the street. And pronouns that help us to avoid repetition. Okay, so let's say this little character was called Paul. We wouldn't want to constantly say Paul in sentence after sentence. So we would say he to help us vary it. Much like if she was called Margaret, we wouldn't say Margaret did this, Margaret did that. We would say Margaret did this and then she did that, because we've already referred to Margaret. We don't need to keep repeating her name. Okay. And again, we wouldn't necessarily always say it's Margaret's. We would move over into it's hers. And that brings us into possessive pronouns, okay? So a possessive pronoun, the key word here is possessive. So again, we've still got words that replace nouns, but these words show a link, which is a possessive link in the sense that we have ownership. We possess something, okay? So a possessive pronoun shows who owns something. So this could be mine, yours, his, hers, ours, its, ours, theirs. Okay, so lots and lots of examples. But basically, all of these words within a sentence would refer to someone owning something. It was her ball. It was his teddy bear. Is this your coat? This is my ball. Okay, so my, your, his, hers, ours all show this sense of possession. Okay, and in essence, these are really simple. Words that replace nouns and words that replace nouns and show ownership. So let's take a look at some SATs examples and work out what these questions look like exactly. So again, in all honesty, pronouns questions can cause a little bit of confusion. It gets us stuck. But let's just take a look at these examples and we'll unpick them as we go along. So again, notice it's question 20, so a little bit further on in the paper. Replace the underlined words. So we've got this word here, or these words here, and the name James here. Replace the underlined words in the sentence below with the correct pronouns, okay? So for his 9th birthday, James visited his grandparents, and his grandparents took James to the cinema. Now, the big clue here is when we're thinking about, well, which word is going to go in here, which is a pronoun. His grandparents are 2 people, okay? So this is going to be their. Okay? So we're going to write that in. Okay, and they took, so if we didn't take James, we took him. Okay, so again, very straightforward. Let's take a little bit of a read. For his 9th birthday, James visited his grandparents and they took him to the cinema. And again, that's a really good tip, is especially with these pronouns questions, once we've put something in here, some pronouns, obviously, let's maybe just read them back to yourself just to make sure that they make sense in the new form. And they, because there's 2 of them, took James, him, to the cinema. And again, we know that James is traditionally a boy name or a male name, so we would use him. That would get us 1 mark, and we'd move on to the next question. Once again, similar sort of question. And again, we've got this example at the bottom that we'll come to. So replace the underlined words with the correct pronoun. And notice, even though there's 3 words here, what this box is wanting is 1 word, a pronoun. Right, 1 pronoun in each box. So when Jack's grandmother came to stay, she gave Jack some money. So relatively straightforward. Hopefully we can see she gave him some money. So we would write him in there. I'm just going to leave that like that. Then we've got Jack used his money to buy a game called Gables. So again, him used money wouldn't make sense, would it? So again, now we're referring to Jack, it would be he used his money to buy a game called Gables. And again, because this is a grammar and punctuation paper, we have a full stop, the start of a new sentence. So the pronoun that we write in here must be capitalized. So we're going to write he in, but we must make sure that this is capitalized. If we just put that in as he, lowercase, we wouldn't have got the mark overall because the grammar and punctuation paper demands of us that we punctuate correctly. So really important to note that. He used his money to buy a game called Gables. Jack could not wait to get home and play the new game. What would go in here? Well, it would be Jack could not wait to get home and play it. Okay, very simple. Very straightforward. And once you see it, and I'm using that again, that's annoying. Once you see it, it's very, very obvious that we can see it. Okay, so very straightforward question. And again, I can see sometimes why this little bit in the heat of the moment would cause a little bit of confusion. But just compose yourself and think and play and think about what actually makes sense and play it. Perfect sense. 1 mark. On to the next question. And again, this question is another good example, like the first question where we have 2 people. So this pronoun is going to refer to more than 1 person. So it's probably not going to be a he or a she. When we have more than 1 person, it's probably going to be a they. Okay, but let's have a little bit of a read. Again, replace the underlined words. So we've got a little bit of a theme here with pronoun questions, where we've got underlined words and they want us to replace the words with a pronoun. So we've seen that 3 times now, so keep that in mind. Underline words in the passage below with the correct pronouns. We'll write 1 pronoun in each box. Let's have a go. And again, we have to get both of them to get the 1 mark. Maggie and Helena wanted to visit the museum. Maggie and Helena, so which word are we going to replace that refers to both of these people? Well, it would be they. And again, notice this is the start of a sentence. So what does this need to be? That's right, it needs to be a capital letter. Okay, so we're going to have they. Okay, they tried to go after school, but the museum was closed. And again, because this, like in the last example, is an object, it isn't a he or a she, it's more likely to be an it, but it was closed. Okay, very, very simple. It was closed. And that would get us the mark. Capital letter, there, it, and that makes complete sense. Maggie and Helena wanted to visit the museum. They tried to go after school, but the museum, it was closed. Perfect. Take the mark, move on to the next question. So this is the last SATs example, referring specifically just to pronouns. So look at the underlined pronoun in the sentence below. Circle the noun that it refers to. So this is just, again, linking back to themselves. It's who is the themselves that this is referring to. And again, the clue in here is themselves is referring to more of a person, isn't it? So again, there's a big clue in there that this is going to be people. Okay? Early bicycles did not have pedals, so riders had to push themselves along using their feet. So the themselves is the riders, and that should make sense. And again, out of all these words in the sentence, themselves is referring to a human in this instance. So the only word is going to be riders. And again, we want to do the instruction that the paper has given us, circle the noun. So we're going to do that very, very clearly. We're going to circle the noun. That would have got us the mark, 1 mark, and we move on to the next question. So we move on to possessive pronouns. Again, notice this, question 44, right at the death of the paper. So circle the possessive pronoun in each sentence below. So we have 2 sentences. And again, there's a lot of words here, and we're really trying to spot either a word that is really familiar as possessive pronoun, or we're trying to work it out as we go. And again, I think there's a few words in here of possessive makes us maybe jump to the word favourite straight away and think, oh, well, that's my favourite's talking about like my favourite thing, so that must be possession, but it's not. Okay, and there's some other pronouns in here as well. So Dad told me that Mum's favourite sport, it's not favourite, is cycling and his is cricket. And again, the first one here, his may jump out at us and think, oh, his is cricket. Okay, but his is just replacing Dad. Okay, so it's just a possessive it's just a pronoun that's instead of us saying Dad again, it says his. Okay, so that's doing the exact job of a pronoun. If we carry on, tennis is Karen's favourite sport and mine is football. Okay, so mine here is acting as the possession. It's showing our ownership of football. So we would circle mine and that would get us the mark. And again, hopefully with that one, we can just spot straight away that when we glance over this, we would know that we would know that mine very, very often acts as a possessive pronoun. So it should have just jumped out to us straight away and went, oh yeah, that's mine, that's showing ownership or possession of football. And again, circle the possessive pronoun in the sentence below. So again, remembering this concept of possessive is this ownership. They own something. She asked to borrow Zach's pencil because hers were all blunt. And again, we could maybe get sucked into the concept of this being Zach's pencils. But really, what we're looking at is she asked to borrow, okay, because hers were all blunt. So it's really referring to her pencils. Her pencils were all blunt. So in this sentence, hers is acting as the possessive pronoun. And again, that makes sense, doesn't it? Her pencils, hers were all blunt. So we can circle that very, very simply, take the mark and move on. And once we start to look at possessive pronoun questions, and again, you can see these are very, very similar, circle the possessive pronoun. Hopefully we can start to see there's a little bit of a clue where similar words are jumping out. Hers and mine, and ours, very, very simple words that are referring to possession. So again, circle the possessive pronoun. When Mum saw that I was wearing Oliver's gloves, she wanted to know where mine were. And again, this is a little bit like the last question where it's not directly saying my ball, it's referring to the gloves, but they're not they're not my gloves in this instance. They're referring to, well, where are your gloves? Okay, so that ownership essence. So we've got Oliver's gloves, but where are my gloves? Okay, so Mum wanted to know where mine were. So again, we've got mine working as a possessive pronoun. We're going to circle that. Little bit of a tricky one. Take the mark and we move on. Again, notice question 42. So these questions are typically cropping up towards the end of the paper. So again, very, very similar question type. Circle the possessive pronoun in the passage below. The boy showed me around the school. He took me. So again, we have a pronoun here. He took me because we didn't want to say the boy again. That's why we've got this variation. He took me to the music room and pointed out which classroom was his. Okay, so again, hopefully at this point, right at the end, it's referring to his classroom, his possession and relationship with the classroom. It's his. Okay, so very straightforward. We should be able to jump, see his right at the end and think, perfect, nice and easy. We'll take the mark and we'll move on to the next question. Again, this is another good example. Question 31, circle the progressive pronoun in the sentence below. And again, it's like this passive nature where you would expect it to be, so hopefully it jumps out straight away. You can see it's ours, okay? The house next to ours, which belongs to Mrs. Green, is for sale. And again, I think with these questions, what they're doing is just making the difficulty slightly harder. So rather than saying our house or a question that says our house, where it would be very obvious, it's the house next to ours. Okay, so there's just that little twist within the sentence that makes it a little bit more difficult to spot and is really testing your understanding of showing ownership. Okay, that possessive pronoun, it's our house. So the house next to ours, which belongs to Mrs. Green, is for sale. So very, very straightforward. Hopefully you can spot ours. And again, even without reading the sentence, we should just be able to see ours and think, yeah, it's likely going to be that working as the possessive pronoun. So we circle it, we take the mark, and we move on. So at that point, that brings us pretty much to the end of all the SATs examples that I could find from the previous years. So quite a lot of examples, mostly or heavily weighted towards possessive pronouns where we have to circle. And if we have pronoun style questions, it's more a case of there's a box underneath and we have to write a pronoun in. So we can really see and get to know what we should expect when it comes to the SATs for pronouns and possessive pronouns. Very straightforward. So again, pause the screen here, have a go at these questions. In some there are one pronoun and in some there are two. Same with the possessive pronouns. Well done for getting through pronouns and possessive pronouns, and hopefully you can see, and you were pretty sure already, that pronouns and especially possessive pronouns are relatively straightforward. And again, it was interesting to see, and I know I've referenced this during the video, actually over the series of SATs papers over the years, there's actually quite a lot of possessive pronoun questions. So I would definitely be keeping an eye out for them, easy marks. And if a pronoun question does crop up, well, those are easy marks too. So well done for working hard and getting stuck into these videos. If you weren't aware already, there's lots of other grammar videos previous to this, nouns, verbs, adjectives and conjunctions, and I'm going to be continuing to film and provide these over the coming weeks in the run up to your SAT. And if you haven't seen the arithmetic videos from last year, check those out. There's about 16, 17, 18 weeks worth. I did a few bonus ones of arithmetic videos guiding you through those essential strategies. So well done for getting stuck into pronouns and possessive pronouns, and I'll see you in the next video for 16 weeks of SATs.